A punishment so cruel, so unforgettable, that even those who witnessed it could never erase it from their minds. Welcome to history's cruel truth. The city was quiet that morning, almost deceptively so. Cobblestone streets, damp with early morning mist, glistened under the first weak rays of sun. Windows were shuttered. The few who dared to peek out exchanged uneasy glances. Rumors had begun to ripple through the city, whispers of injustice, betrayal, and an execution so shocking that it would forever stain the annals of history. In a small, darkened alley, Thomas, a young scribe, pressed his back against the cold stone wall, trying to catch snippets of conversation among merchants opening their shops. He could feel the tension hanging in the air, thick like fog. Citizens murmured in hushed tones about the royal decree, an execution meant to serve as a warning, yet whose cruelty exceeded comprehension. At the edge of the square, the victim awaited, a figure bound and trembling, eyes wide with terror, knowing that escape was impossible. Guards flanked them, stern faces emotionless under the morning light. The crowd, slowly gathering, was an unsettling mix of curiosity, fear, and suppressed rage. Mothers clutched their children, merchants dropped their goods, and men whispered darkly about the events that had led to this moment. The city itself seemed to sense the storm to come. Flags fluttered listlessly, smoke curled from distant chimneys, and the cobblestones echoed every hurried step. Thomas could hear the metallic clank of chains, the low murmur of orders given by the executioners, and the rising hum of the citizens gathering for the spectacle. This was no ordinary punishment. It was a performance of terror meant to imprint itself on every witness. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling us where and when you're watching. Your support inspires us to bring more shocking and unforgettable historical stories. As the first rays of sun struck the square, the victim was led forward. The crowd pressed closer, murmurs turning into anxious whispers, whispers swelling into murmured gasps. Thomas found a hiding spot behind a stack of crates, his heart hammering in his chest. He could see the execution apparatus, tall, menacing, designed to intimidate even before it struck. A hush fell over the crowd. Eyes widened. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Men shifted nervously, unable to look away. The condemned looked around, their breathing shallow, eyes darting for an escape that didn't exist. Every second stretched endlessly, each one amplifying the horror to come. The first warning was a drumbeat, low, rhythmic, echoing across the square. The executioners moved with chilling precision, their shadows long and sinister in the morning light. The victim's struggle was brief, but poignant. The crowd leaned forward, drawn to the cruel spectacle, unable to turn away. The city seemed to hold its collective breath, aware that history was about to mark this day with blood and terror. Smoke from nearby torches twisted in the morning air, creating eerie shapes that danced across the walls. Faces of the citizens reflected a mixture of fascination, dread, and morbid anticipation. Thomas's notebook lay open in his hands, pen trembling as he tried to record every detail, knowing that no words could truly capture the horror about to unfold. And then the first strike came, a loud, resonant sound that echoed through the square, silencing murmurs for a moment before screams and gasps filled the air. The executioners acted with terrifying calm, their movements precise, almost ritualistic. Every drop of blood, every cry of pain, every flinch of the victim was seared into the minds of all who watched. The crowd's reactions were instantaneous. Shock, horror, fascination, and even a grim satisfaction mingled in the air. The victim, trapped in the cruel machinery of punishment, struggled as the execution continued. Thomas, writing feverishly, could barely focus through his own terror. He understood, with a sinking feeling, that this was a story that would haunt everyone present for the rest of their lives. The square had transformed into a theater of terror. The morning mist had burned away, revealing streets crowded with a restless, tense audience. Faces pressed forward, eyes wide with anticipation, some pale with fear, others flushed with morbid curiosity. The execution apparatus stood in the center, a monstrous silhouette against the brightening sky, its structure cold, unyielding, and final. The victim was dragged forward, trembling, every step a painful reminder of the inevitability of what was to come. Chains rattled with each movement, echoing across the square and adding a metallic undertone to the symphony of terror. Guards flanked the condemned with rigid precision, their expressions unreadable, betraying no emotion even as the crowd surged and shifted around them. Thomas remained hidden behind a pile of crates, notebook clutched tightly in his hands. Sweat ran down his temples, and his heart pounded with every footstep, every gasp, every whisper from the crowd. He could see children pressed to their parents' sides, their small eyes reflecting the horror, some of them already on the verge of tears. Mothers whispered hurried prayers, their fingers clutching rosaries, while men exchanged tense, silent glances, unable to look away. And then the first blow struck. It was not the final one, but the sound of impact was enough to ripple through the square. Gasps, screams, and cries filled the air, mixing with the clatter of chains and the shuffling of the crowd. The victim's body jerked, eyes rolling with terror, mouth open in a scream that seemed to pierce the cold morning. Thomas's hand shook as he tried to write, each word a futile attempt to capture the magnitude of cruelty unfolding before him. The executioners worked with unnerving calm. Every strike, every movement was deliberate, choreographed in a rhythm that only they seemed to understand. There was no hesitation, no mercy, no pause. The victims' struggles grew weaker with each passing moment, their body finally succumbing to the brutal machinery of punishment. From the crowd, reactions varied wildly. Some cheered quietly, a mixture of relief and satisfaction at the justice or vengeance served. Others turned away, unable to bear the sight, faces pale and eyes brimming with tears. Whispers spread like wildfire, some condemning the cruelty, others marveling at the efficiency of the execution. Smoke from nearby torches spiraled upward, creating ghostly shapes that twisted in the morning air. Shadows danced across the cobblestones and the crowd, lending an almost supernatural aura to the horrific scene. Thomas, notebook forgotten for a moment, could only stare, his mind unable to fully process the sights and sounds. He felt as though history itself was being etched in blood before his very eyes. The victim's face, frozen in terror, became the face of history's cruel truth. Every blink, every shiver, every quiver of the lips was recorded by the collective memory of the witnesses. For some, it was fascination. For others, sheer horror. And yet all were bound together in that moment by the shared experience of witnessing something that could never be forgotten. The city around them seemed to react to the cruelty. Birds fell silent, shopkeepers peered cautiously from shuttered windows, and a hush descended over the edges of the square. Even the wind seemed to carry the weight of dread, whispering through the narrow streets as if mourning the victim's fate. Thomas's eyes followed every movement, his pen moving furiously, trying to commit the scene to paper. But he knew no words could fully capture the intensity, the terror, and the horror. The execution was more than a punishment. It was a message, a warning, and a spectacle that would haunt generations. The sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows across the square, now silent but heavy with the memory of horror. The execution was over, yet its echo lingered in every corner of the city. Cobblestones, still damp with morning mist, were now stained with the physical and emotional residue of cruelty. Smoke curled lazily from torches left behind, creating ghostly shapes that danced across the walls. The crowd had thinned, but not vanished. Some citizens lingered, faces pale, eyes haunted, murmuring quietly about the ordeal they had just witnessed. Mothers comforted trembling children, unable to shake the visions of terror from their minds. Men exchanged solemn glances, acknowledging without words that they had borne witness to something inhuman, something history would remember forever. Thomas, the young scribe, remained hidden behind a stack of crates. His notebook lay open, ink smudged from trembling hands. Every detail, every scream, every motion of the victim's terror was etched into his memory. He realized then that the true horror of this execution was not only in the act itself, but in the way it had left an indelible mark on every witness. The executioners, long gone, had completed their grim task, leaving behind an empty square and a city in shock. Their efficiency and calm were unnerving, and yet their absence made the scene even more haunting. What remained was not only the memory of the victim's suffering, but also the stark reminder of human cruelty, a truth that would linger for decades in whispered stories and historical accounts. As Thomas cautiously emerged from his hiding spot, he noticed the subtle signs of life trying to return. Shopkeepers tentatively reopened their stores, children peeked out from behind curtains, and a few brave citizens walked cautiously along the cobblestones. Yet the city would never be the same. The shadows of that morning had seeped into its very fabric, marking it forever with the cruelty witnessed. The victim's memory became a symbol, a stark, horrifying testament to the capacity for human brutality. Every eye that had seen the execution carried it with them, and every whisper spread its weight through the streets and alleys of the city. The story of that day would not fade. It would become a dark cornerstone of history, repeated in hushed tones and preserved in chronicles for future generations. Even the architecture seemed to mourn. The palace walls, windows, and gates stood silent, as though bearing witness to the cruelty executed before them. Shadows stretched unnaturally long across the square, reflecting the grief, the terror, and the indelible mark left on the city. Paris, once vibrant and full of life, now carried a solemn weight, a reminder that even in the pursuit of justice, cruelty can leave scars impossible to erase. Thomas closed his notebook, his hands still shaking. He knew that he had recorded a story that no history book could ever fully contain: the screams, the fear, the spectacle of human suffering. And yet, he also knew that stories like these were essential, for they reminded people of the fragility of life, the peril of unchecked power, and the haunting consequences of cruelty. As dusk settled over the square, a hush enveloped the streets. The city exhaled collectively, weary from witnessing a truth that was both historical and deeply personal. The victim, now gone, had left behind a legacy, a chilling reminder of the darkest corners of human history. For those who saw, for those who wrote, and for those who would hear of it later, the memory of that execution would never be forgotten. And in that silence, one thought echoed in every mind: history is cruel, not only in the acts it records, but in the way it forces the living to remember. The execution had ended, but its shadow remained, haunting every street, every stone, every whisper of the city, a cruel truth no one could escape.